This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details. Hello everybody, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome back to another Pros vs. Cons mini-review, the show where I present the pros and cons of my first impressions. I got the opportunity to discuss the Fate series with the first Warriors Clones video when I talked about Fate Extella, and although I'm still not super familiar with the Fate franchise, I do plan on jumping in eventually. Whether video games, manga, or anime, my backlog is a bit daunting. I swear, one of these days I'll start watching Fate, but today I get to take a look at something other than Fate Extella. On September 29th, we got a new game in the multimedia franchise called Fate Samurai Remnant, this time being developed and published by Koei Tecmo. You all know how much I love Koei Tecmo and Omega Force games, so to say I'm excited to jump into a Fate game that has these names behind it is an understatement. Not only that, we have some big names to the Fate franchise helping out as well. Kinako Nasu, creator of Fate Stay Night, is working as supervisor, while Hiraku Sakurai, writer of Fate Grand Order, and Yuichiro Higashida, writer of Fate Apocrypha, both working on the writing. So not only are we going to get solid gameplay from Omega Force with Ryota Matsuhida taking the position of director after Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but the story and characters should be a great experience as well. I seriously want to thank Koei Tecmo for providing a review code, but also being very understanding about how late this video is. You see, Fate Samurai Remnant came out the literal day after my 5th wedding anniversary, so I've been on vacation until about October 10th. So I am super excited to jump into this game, but before we do, don't forget to give this video a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, let's jump into Fate Samurai Remnant. Ready, set, pros. Starting things off, we have to talk about how good this game looks. I find myself really enjoying the exploration around each area. Fate Samurai Remnant gives you various cities and villages to explore that are connected through a world map. These all serve as stages for you to complete a variety of side quests and fight in small brawls. Each area also has their own set of side quests, keeping things fresh each time you enter a new part of town. But the environment isn't the only thing that looks good. I love all the character designs here, and although I'm not very familiar with all of the characters that I see, I do recognize the odd few, even with their new outfits. I only know a handful of characters from the Extella games, so I've been making some guesses to some servants' true names as I go along. You really only get provided a couple in the first chapter through the story beats, so I'm interested to see if I'm correct with some of my guesses. Speaking of story, this is one of the simplest story setups with some of the most complex characters. Iori is who you mainly play as. He's a disciple of the great Miyamoto Musashi. You know the one. Anyways, he's been looking after his adoptive sister for quite some time, struggling to earn money by helping the constable with Ronin who may be causing trouble. But all of that changes when he's suddenly selected to join the Waxing Moon Ritual, which is essentially the Holy Grail War that Fate is so well known for. It boils down to a giant anime tournament arc where 7 masters are selected and provided servants who are famous people from history. Servants are identified by their class. This can be things like Saber, Rider, or Lancer to name a few. Iori's servant is a mysterious Saber who comes from an ancient time before even paper was a thing. Saber refuses to provide Iori her name though. This is because one's true name can also reveal their weaknesses, and she isn't convinced that Iori will be able to hide her true identity if he's captured by the enemy. Iori is attacked by a Lancer and a Rider before Saber steps in to save the day, but not before she destroys a good chunk of Iori's hometown. After this though, Iori tells Saber never to use that ability unless she is certain there will be no damage to the land and it won't lead to any injured bystanders. He explains he believes in the way of peace and fights to protect. Saber reluctantly agrees and the two of them begin to get to know each other. This is also when it's revealed that Iori is in possession of a book that talks and teaches him magecraft. They use what Iori knows of magecraft and what Saber knows of the Waxing Moon Ritual to investigate other masters masters and servants while trying to survive waves of attacks from their enemies. While investigating one area, it's revealed that Iori's master, Musashi, is actually one of the servants under another master. The four of them agree to a truce and to work together until they must eventually face each other. I've made it further than this part in the story now, but I don't want to go beyond that. There's still a lot of this game for me to play through, and a lot of twists and turns this story has to take. There will even be other familiar names and faces revealed throughout the game that fans of Fate and even previous Omega Force titles will enjoy. So far, the story has me on the edge of my seat wanting more. Combat is also handled very well. With Omega Force working on the game, I wouldn't doubt the combat would be as solid as my Nokia N-Gage.
Oh no, my floor!
Combat is what you'd expect from Omega Force. Square is a normal attack, while triangle is a heavier attack that ends your combo. Circle is a special move that you slowly build up a bar to execute, but that's pretty well where the similarities stop. There's quite a few complexities to the combat mechanics that spice things up beyond what longtime Musou fans would be used to from the company. You can switch stances on the fly. You start off with 2 stances, but there is room for at least 4. At the beginning, you have a slower single sword stance and a faster dual-wielding stance. As you deal more damage in one stance, you'll notice some particles around you. If you switch stances at this point, you'll gain a buff based on the stance you just switched from. With Iori learning Magecraft, you also have a handful of spells that you can cast and will either deal damage or give you a buff as well. You can also switch over to Saber for a limited time and control her. She is a lot stronger than Iori and can even attack through some of the larger demon's guards. There are also sections where you'll fight as her and other servants too. Servants also have special moves that can be used, which can be quite devastating. You can also dodge attacks, and if you dodge at the right time, you can counter. I think this combat system will be good for those who are looking for a Musou game that takes inspiration from other Koei Tecmo games like Wo Long or Nioh. Like I said earlier, each area has different side quests for you to do, from buying an item from every food stand in the city to taking out a certain number of enemies in the area. As you play through the game, you'll meet characters who will give you side quests to work towards as well. These side quests can give you money, material, and experience to go towards the handful of skill trees and upgradable mechanics. Both Iori and Saber have their own unique skill tree, and you can upgrade parts of your Magecraft. You can also customize Iori's 2 swords from the handle to the scabbards. On top of this, there's one aspect of the game that puts it above the rest. One that makes this a top contender for Game of the Year. Something that we, as humans, have the innate need for. When you see these, there's something that you must do no matter who you are, what your beliefs are, or where you came from. It is built into your DNA, and for some reason, not all games allow you to do this very basic human need. You can pet the cats and dogs.
Just like in real life. Cons!
Even though I mentioned how much I enjoyed this game's looks and designs, I do feel like it could be a bit better for being a PS5 title. I don't know, maybe I'm expecting too much from an anime game, and maybe it's being held back by also releasing for the PS4 and Switch, but I still have yet to feel like I have a truly next-gen hack and slash or action RPG experience on the PS5. There are even some moments where the frame rate kinda drops from time to time. I don't think the usual player will notice, but I've been an official member of the Visual Snobs Club for a while now.
My shirt's coming in next week.
I don't know, like I said, it could be that I'm just expecting too much, but I just really want that smooth feeling from my PS5 games. Speaking of smooth experiences, the pre-rendered cutscenes in this game are absolutely gorgeous, and they don't look too different from the main game's graphics. The only way you'd know which moments are pre-rendered versus in-game are really the black bars at the top and bottom of the screen and the subtitles instead of the characters' portraits. But one thing that I think this game would benefit from are smooth transitions from gameplay to cutscene. This could be done by slowly bringing in the black bars to change the aspect ratio, then use a camera shift to switch to the pre-rendered. I'm just imagining what was done with something like Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8, and I think the more cinematic style would give the narrative an even more immersive feel. I would also like to say that whoever designed the controls needs to take a bit more time before finalizing things. There's just way too much to do for a normal PS5 controller. Maybe if I had a couple more buttons like the fancy controllers with the triggers on the back, but with a regular ass PS5 controller, I just don't think there's a good enough setup that gives me access to everything and have it be where I would naturally want it to be. Like, there's a jump button, but there's also a dodge button that's really integral to combat. Since dodge is so important, I remapped my controller so that it was on X and set jump to one of the shoulder buttons. But because I did that and I didn't have to jump for most of my time playing, when I got to a servant fight where I had to jump over shockwaves, I was like, how do I avoid these? X is also my preferred spot for jump, so having two functions that I would normally like to have mapped to the same button, it leaves me wishing that I could have an X1 and an X2. I just think the game would have been better if designed around the dodge rather than having it and jump being required. In the end, Fate Samurai Remnant was an absolute treat. I even bought the collector's edition of the game, which I do plan to do an unboxing eventually, but for now, I just plan to enjoy keeping it sealed. I've been keeping my eye on this game throughout its development while still trying to keep as much distance so that I could come into this review with as much of an unaware mind as possible. Fate Samurai Remnant just made me feel like I had discovered the next big game I'd spend hours and hours on. Just like my experience with Atelier Ryza 3, this is going to be one of those games I just pick away at slowly, savoring every moment and taking my sweet time so I don't devour it in an instant. I plan on playing way more of this game, and that's why Fate Samurai Remnant gets a thumbs up from me. The story and combat are the real MVPs of this game. I had some interest in getting into the Fate franchise by watching some of the animes after playing the Extella games, but after playing Samurai Remnant, I know I need more Fate. I was even tempted to get into Fate Grand Order on mobile, but I know that's just asking for financial troubles. I'm broke. Sure, the game's visuals could have been made better for a PS5 game, but overall it doesn't impact the experience of the game. And even though the initial controls of the game were a bit wonky, it does allow you to remap them to your comfort. So I was able to create something that was a bit more to my liking, even though it's still not perfect. But the end goal of a game, in my opinion, is to be fun. It's to provide the player with good gameplay and a worthwhile story. Those are the two things that are paramount, and Fate Samurai Remnant delivers those on a silver platter. What it may have in flaws are very shallow and easily overlooked or forgotten. I say you should pick this game up because you're not going to want to put it down. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching my mini review of Fate Samurai Remnant. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. What was your introduction to the Fate series? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to help support the channel and what I do here, you can join the guild just like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon, or you can donate in a one-time fashion and join the volunteer unit over on Ko-fi. A special shout out goes to my guild general Beggy Beg Beg for supporting this channel at the top tier. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.